Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to take it note for note. Don't worry. It's Breakfast with Bob. It's Breakfast with Bob. It's Breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man! Welcome to day 3, Breakfast with Bob. We are brought to you by EAS Sports Nutrition, Hoka One Polar, Oscar Wellness, Velo Fix. Our championship edition will be at Four Seasons Hualalai, and we are airing on triathlonworld.com. Our next guest, 8-time Ironman champion, here for his 11th time. He's become a resident of Kailua Kona, Mr. Luke McKenzie. How you doing, Luke?
Good, thanks, Bob. Yeah, spent a lot of time here over the last 11 years. Yeah, it's good to be back.
I love it. So, fitness coming into this race? Are you feeling good?
Yeah, no, I think that's the funniest thing about this race is you get here and everyone's like, "Oh, are you fit? You know, how you feel?" I'm like, "Well, yeah,
I wouldn't be here.
I wouldn't be here otherwise.
I'd
you
be
know,
back home.
It's October and we're in Hawaii. You know, I'm here to compete, and that's all part of it, I guess. Yeah.
And I love the highs and lows of this sport. So last year, DNF'd here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
First time.
Yeah, first time. But then you go to Ironman Western Australia and go sub 8.
Yeah.
So it's like something get taken away, and sometimes things happen for a reason, it seems.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this race is unforgiving. You know, it's the toughest one-day race because, I mean, you get that one crack at it every year, and
right.
Things go wrong like they did last year, then you're exposed. And that was the first time I didn't reach the finish line last year. And coming here since 2006, I'd prided myself on finishing every one of them. So it was good to go to Bustleton at the end of last year and utilize all of that hard work and sacrifice that went into this event. I was able to use that going into Bustleton and to record a sub 8 there and finish the year on a high.
Right.
After the low of the DNF here was, it ended up being quite a good year.
Well, and then once you finished on the podium, once you finished second like you did in 2013, you know that you can win the race, right? You know you can win the race. You know you can go off the front on the bike, and your running keeps getting better and better and better. What does it take this year to win this race?
Yeah, I guess the thing you learn from post having that result, 2013 is a few years ago now, but it gives you the belief that you can do it.
Right.
But you also then become a little bit of a marked man too. And I guess, Sebastian, Jan, these guys are marked men.
Right.
They've won it before. They know how to do it. But, I feel like that 2013, I sort of got that sort of free pass where people sort of didn't know, what's Luke going to do with this lead that he had off the bike, And I think maybe Ben Hoffman succumbed to the same sort of thing last year after coming second the year prior. You become that man in the field where everyone's sort of like, hold on, we can't let this guy go up the road. So I think tactically you need to be a lot smarter.
Right.
I've still got to utilize my strengths, which is the bike. But, it's going to be about being smart in the early stages, not overexerting yourself, not putting yourself in a situation where, you're dragging 50 guys along.
and you're doing all the work.
And you're doing all the work.
I mean, it is a quote-unquote non-drafting race, but it is a pacing race, right?
Pacing race, definitely.
You're sitting legally back a certain level.
Yep.
But if you're in the wrong spot, you got 10, 15 guys. So if somebody makes a move, you can be gone, right?
Yep,
so
absolutely.
you have to be on edge the entire time, that whole bike ride.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very tactical in that first 40, 50, 60 kilometers of the bike ride. Everyone comes out of the swim together, and I guess that's part and parcel of racing here. If you don't like it, well, then you may as well not show up because, every year we get out there on the highway and there's 20, 30 guys strong at the lead of the race, and you've obviously got to weather that storm in the opening 50, 60 kilometers because it is 112 miles of hard riding, and it only gets harder. The wind gets up later in the race, and it more often than not the big group that goes out onto the highway doesn't come back that way.
They definitely don't come back that way. Usually the group stays together to Kauai High, and then that Kauai High to Hawi and back is sort of the truth light, right? That's where the winds come from the sides or in the face, and that's become strongman time, or strong gal time.
Yeah, I've just been riding up there this morning. It's the last ride that I'll have out there, and just to feel that wind one last time. And I think that's a pivotal part of the race. You get to a point where there's no hiding.
Right.
You've really got to ride your own watts there, and the pacing sort of goes a little bit out the window with the climbing and the descending. So Yeah, no, that's a point in the race that can be quite pivotal, and that's where you'll see it really break up.
So there was a point, I think you had finished 9th here or something like that. Yeah, you finished 9th. And then at that point, people start thinking you can win. But there was a pretty major change in your body, right? You got a lot leaner the year you got second. Was that a conscious effort saying, okay, I can't be carrying anything extra if I want to win this race?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite evident now that this race, I mean, everyone's trying to find that 1-2% across the board. And whether it's, body composition, whether it's your equipment, everything. There's so much going into this race that's, I mean, it's the difference between potentially winning, getting on the podium, coming in the top 10. All these guys are going to, massive lengths to get those little gains. So, it was obvious to me that, if I wanted to compete on the marathon especially, I needed to be leaner and, but maintain my strength too, because, I mean, obviously I've still got to push 112 miles on the bike. So I think I found a really good mix of that in the last couple of years.
Wattage-wise, what do you try to maintain for this race?
I mean, that's an interesting one. I think it's because it's so tactical, it's hard to hit an exact number, especially in the opening 60 or so kilometers. But anything in around the 280 watt range is something that I feel is very sustainable.
Yes.
But you know that you're going to have those peaks out there, especially in that opening 60 kilometers. So it's a matter of not overexerting yourself, and it's something that I've come to learn over the last couple of years.
When I look at that race, you've got, it seems like early on they're surging, they're sort of forgetting it's 112 miles and there's a marathon afterwards. Is it hard not to get caught up in that?
Absolutely. I think that's what experience here probably shows me, being out here so many years now, watching the dynamic of the race and probably even watching from the sideline last year after I DNF, just how this race really sort of plays out.
Was that one of the first times you've watched it?
Well, in 2010, I didn't start actually. I was injured. So that was a year too where I watched Macca and Andreas Raylert duke it out. And I think, there's always something to be learnt from watching from the outside looking in, being there and experiencing it and then coming back and utilising that the next year. And I think that was something that probably being out there in the marathon, obviously I was out there to support Beth, but I got to watch a lot of the men's race and just watching the dynamic of how it can really change. And no one's really out of, whether you're out of the podium or out of the top 10 or whatever. I mean, it really can change so much come the finish line.
So as somebody who trained with Craig Alexander back in the day, and there were times you were working out where you were hurting him, right? You're on the bike and you're hurting him. Then he goes off and wins the race here twice, right? And here's a guy who in training you're sort of beating up on sometimes. Yeah. Mentally, because I remember Peter Reed or Tim DeBoom telling me, I finished 10th and Peter Reed won, and I was hurting him in training every day. Yeah. Does that change the way you look at yourself when the guy you're training with goes off and wins this thing? Yeah,
I think being around Crowie and being able to learn from, being beside him and being there experiencing it with him, leading into it, the way that he approached it, his mental game, all that sort of stuff rubs off on you. And I think that that's something that I've tried to arm myself with, being in his camp over those years and being able to see what it really takes to win this race. And I think, that particular year in 2013 was the tipping point for me where I feel like I started to have the edge on Crowie that particular year. And he said to me before the race, you can win this race. And, to have the guy that had won the race 3 times prior to that, I think that's, something that really hits home. Right. And it's something that you can really draw on in the race. And it's what I really believed after he said that. So I think that's something that he definitely passed on to me.
Well, and then the fact that, I think you were coming out of the energy lab, he was heading into the energy lab, and what he say to you, because you're at that point, he knows you're going to have to dig pretty deep to win this thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was pretty cool to have Crowie literally, step onto the other side of the road and stop his race at that point to give me that little piece of inspiration, to get myself to the finish line, because I was hurting. I was in second place, but I was very determined.
And you've been leading.
And I'd been leading. Yeah.
You can start practicing your presentation, your acceptance speech.
You never do that. You never do that. That comes when you cross the finish line. As we've seen here before, you can look great at mile 24, and you've still got those tough last few miles to go. So you're never looking too far ahead in this race. It's obviously about management of all those little highs and lows that you're going to have all day, and especially late in the marathon, it becomes a real war with yourself to, keep pushing when you really want to just curl up and die. You've got to keep pushing.
Well, and especially you got to keep pushing because you weren't that far behind Freddie at that point.
Yep.
And as Crowe probably made you realize, that guy something can happen there too.
Absolutely.
That race is still right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, right until you cross that finish line, you really never know in this race. And I think that's something that I just kept saying to myself. I've had my low point, and I felt like I came strong again in the last couple of miles.
Yeah.
But who was to say that Freddie wasn't going to get to that last hill and totally fall apart himself? So you've got to keep yourself in the game out here. Like I said, whether it's for the win, whether it's for the podium, you keep pushing, because I think, you invest so much into this race, and it's something that you want to get every single ounce out of yourself.
And the other thing you've done this year is you really started analyzing salt, started analyzing the way your body processes things. How much has that helped?
Absolutely, yeah. Having the Gatorade Sports Science Institute come on board this year and being able to work with those guys and really focus on a part of my race that I feel like I'd neglected, especially last year. It exposed me. I DNF'd, and I'd never had that before out here. And I think to have those guys in my corner and to go away and say, okay, look, let's approach this and see what you've been doing wrong or what we can improve and work on all that stuff. It's been something that I feel like I'm very well prepared with this year, and it's part of the race just as much as the swimming, bike and running. The nutrition part of this race, especially out here in Kona in such harsh conditions, is pivotal. So
like you said, this is your 11th time here.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about this place? So you've obviously done very well here, and then at the same time you had a DNF, and what is it about this race that keeps bringing you back?
Obviously, it's just this event is the pinnacle of our sport, and it's the race that everyone wants to win, and it's a race that I feel like it would be hard to have the perfect race out here, and I think, I mean, if I was to win it, I would say that it'd probably be as close to be the perfect race as you could have, obviously. But, there's something about this race that it's such a challenge. Obviously, you've got all the best guys racing on the hardest course in one day. And I think to keep coming back year after year and experiencing that, and to, I do it for the enjoyment of racing and racing the best guys and racing on the hardest course. And,
right.
And that's it. That's what draws me back.
Knowing what a great cyclist you are, but back in the day, I'm sure it's like, okay, how do you win? Well, I've got to have 10 minutes, but now with the fact that you're running so much better, do you feel that okay, I can win this a number of ways? I can be a factor in this race a number of ways. I can, if it's a tactical bike ride, I can ride tactically, and I can run with pretty much anybody in the field.
Yeah, no, I feel like I missed my error a little bit, probably 10 or 12 years ago. I think, you could probably get away. I'm not disrespecting the past, but it's evident now that you really have to be such a strong biker at this race, but then be able to produce a fast marathon.
You got to run
to
the
win
240s as well.
And, guys like Jan and Sebi and Crowe and these guys that have come along in the last couple of years that have really pushed that level, up another notch. I think that's what, that's the direction the race is headed. And so I think, I've got to be confident in a strong run off a hard bike. I think that I'm never going to be the fastest runner, but history here shows if you're in the top 5 off the bike and can produce a solid run, you're going to be on the podium.
Love that.
Yeah.
Luke, it is always a pleasure to chat with you. Oh, and one before we break, Island House.
Yeah.
Island House coming up. So you get to switch hats and go from athlete to race director.
Yeah,
and that's coming up end of October.
3 weeks. Yeah, no, we're going to see you out there again, Bob. And it's going to be an exciting race. It's drawing, athletes from all different kinds of triathlon, from Ironman to ITU to, it's an exciting thing that over the last couple of years I've been very passionate about, and I'm very lucky to do. Yeah,
well, 3 days of racing. Like you said, gold medalists, Ironman champions, $500,000 in prize money, made for TV.
In the beauty of the Bahamas.
And the beauty of the Bahamas. Love it. Luke, always an honor. Thank you so much, buddy, for taking time. Poncho Man, take us out.
And when you worry, that will make you frown, and that will bring everybody down. But don't worry, watch Breakfast with Bob. Breakfast with Bob. Breakfast with Bob. Breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man!